Welcome to the True North Ice Podcast, where we cover everything Hockey Canada and Canadian hockey related. I'm Jacob Ewing, joined alongside Caleb Schneider, and what a first episode we have, Caleb. One of the biggest
Yes.
tournaments, I would say, in hockey history.
Mhm.
They bring back best on best hockey. We're covering and breaking down the Four Nations face-off.
Yes. Great tournament and no complaints and great way to start our first episode. Great way to start our podcast.
Exactly. You cannot ask for a better event kind of to
Exactly.
kick this thing off. Like,
Exactly.
what an event it was. It replaces the All-Star break, something that was getting bland and boring over the years. And they bring out this new, this fancy, this new, brand new toy. And it just clicked so well.
It only took 6 years to do too.
Right? You know
Yeah.
what? Shout out Gary Bettman, though.
Mhm.
Shout out. Shout
Yeah.
out Gary. You know, he really
shout
cooked.
out,
Like,
shout out for listening to the fans and then waiting 6 years to pull it out. But you know what? We got it. Finally got it. Or 5 years, I guess I should say. But
yeah.
we're
And
finally
you see
here.
like you see news outlets like ESPN, like we saw Shaq and Chuck
Mhm.
both on the panel on the NBA panel talking about how good this tournament was. Kevin Durant, I know, was talking to
Mhm.
fans on Twitter about who were complaining about the NBA All-Star game, which was also going on at the same time as Four Nations was going on, and saying,
Yeah.
"Listen, if you find the NBA boring, go watch this incredible hockey that's going on."
Mhm.
And
I
like,
saw
why not?
I saw last night a Knicks player had a USA jersey on post game of their game, and then a few minutes later, the US blow it anyways. So I thought that was great too. But no, it was a great tournament, and honestly, can't wait for next year. But honestly, I think the NHL way of doing this was almost perfect, and I mean next year will be great, but I think the NHL's Four Nations or World Cup is going to be a little better than the Olympics in my
Really?
opinion. But you know what?
Okay.
I think the best way to start this podcast, Jake, is with a hot take on Team Canada from the tournament. I want to hear your hot take.
You want to hear my hot take? Okay,
Yes.
let's do it. I'll go first. My hot take is, let's say more specifically about kind of last night's game. Now it would have down.
Okay.
I believe that the US of A would have won gold at the Four Nations face-off if they had Quinn Hughes.
Interesting. And
You know,
who would be taken out of the lineup then? You taking Jake Sanderson
taken
out?
out of the lineup, I'm not taking Jake Sanderson out. He had an incredible game. Obviously, he scored the second goal to give the US the lead in the second period. Played a great game defensively, not afraid to take on anybody in the world. I'm taking out Brock Faber. Young
Interesting.
defenseman. It's same
Interesting.
place as Sanderson, young defenseman. He did his job. It's nice. You didn't see him a lot on the ice, or you didn't notice him a lot on the ice, and that's good for a shutdown defenseman. If you don't notice him, it means he's not making mistakes, right? And he did a good job of that last night. But he's still young, still have some time to develop. I'm taking Brock Faber out of the lineup. I mean,
Okay.
Quinn Hughes over Brock Faber any day of
Yeah.
the week, right?
Well, Quinn Hughes over any defenseman on the US anyways, but
It's true.
in this case, would you have done 11-7 then if they were able to do that?
God, no.
You wouldn't have
You
taken
cannot run
Brock
11-7.
You wouldn't have taken Brock Nelson out or Chris Kreider for
I
Quinn
think,
Hughes.
mind you, Chris Kreider didn't play a lot last night. I believe he was
No.
benched after the end of the second period, or like 3 minutes left the second. But Chris Kreider is one of in a game like that, mind you, it wasn't very physical last
No,
night. Not as much
wasn't.
as it was on Saturday. But Chris Kreider is just another one of those players we've seen in the past where he's a rat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's
Yeah.
good to have in a game like that. So
That's
I don't.
fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So Caleb,
Mhm.
I want to hear your hot take about this whole entire tournament. Let's hear it.
Okay. My hot take is on Team Canada, of course, and my hot take is that Josh Morrissey, although he had 0 points, was Canada's best defenseman.
Wow. Okay. Why don't you break that down for us?
Okay, well, obviously, Cale Makar, he only had 1 assist, first of all. Obviously, assists, points, not really a big deal for the defenseman when the guys up front are doing all the work, but especially in that Canada-US game, the first one, when Cale Makar was out, Josh Morrissey really stepped up, was playing like the best, though he was playing like the number one D-man on Canada, and just really held down the fort defensively. It could have easily been 5-1 final without him. And sure, also Thomas Harley was great, but like especially when we have two defensemen drowning and Colton Parayko and Travis Sanheim, like they were drowning for both U.S. games. It was really good to have that second D man or first D man as Josh Morrissey stepping up. Played a lot of minutes too, and he ended up with just a +1, but easily could have been for more if Canada's offense was any better.
Like, okay, I really like that. You know, you did mention he only finished with 1 point, but you have so much firepower and so many different options that
Mm.
you don't need a defenseman to get so many points, right? Like
No,
that's fine.
no,
You can still win a tournament,
mm.
yeah, with
He
firepower
ended with
up front.
zero. He ended with 0 points, but he was a +1. But I'm saying if Canada's forwards were any better, like I wouldn't say they struggled, but the offense wasn't as great as what you expected. If they were more offensive, he easily could have ended with like a +3 or 4.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
100% agree with you. That's
And
I like that point. You know, especially when Cam McCarr was out in that Saturday game, he really stepped up. He
mm-hmm.
really did. And
Mm-hmm.
mind you, they lost,
Yeah.
but a 2-1 game with an empty
No.
netter
Mm-hmm.
is as
It's
close as it gets.
and every game was a 1 goal game too that they played in, other than that 3-1 game, but it was an empty netter, so really not much.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and 5-3, 5-3,
Yeah, well, the
5-3
other
Finland.
empty netter, but like, I mean, that's also a different game. But 5-3 empty net, 4-3. It should have been 4-0, but that's what happens when you collapse.
Yeah, I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, well, no, I don't even know if that's a hot take, Caleb. I think that's just a take.
Mm.
So why don't we roll right over hot takes and go into the breakdown of each game? We had 4 games
Mm-hmm.
overall, 3 round robins, 1 championship game. Caleb, why don't you kick us off?
Um, well, first game we had Canada Sweden, which was a great opener for the NHL and the Four Nations face off. You know what? I thought Sweden was possibly going to be the second best team coming into the tournament, and on paper they might have been, but we'd figure out this Canada Sweden game definitely if Sweden could step up, and
And
Canada Canada
let
started
me
off. Yeah.
let me break one in right there. Let me interrupt you right there.
Mm.
Is that second behind the U.S. or is that second behind Canada?
In my opinion, it was second behind the U.S. I honestly thought Canada was coming in here as the third best team, but that's how I roll, and sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're right, and you know what, Sweden, like Elias Pettersson sucked. Half their defense stuck. Like Rasmus Sanderson only played the final game against the U.S. and he might have been their best defenseman the entire tournament, and he only played 1 game. So I mean, Erik Karlsson was great, but other than that, like they stunk. Like they were terrible. And I don't know if they weren't expecting it or what they're expecting, but to start the game though, with like the best start you could ever imagine, you got Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid assisting Nathan McKinnon on the power play. Like, couldn't set that up any better than that. No.
No, it was the perfect starting. It really was to kind of show the firepower that Team Canada has.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, after that goal, I think expectations maybe got a little bit too high
Mm-hmm,
because when you
definitely.
score with with
Mm-hmm.
just under a minute into the first period, you kind of
Yeah.
think, okay, we're gonna win this tournament
Mm-hmm.
easily, right? And it definitely was not that. As we both know how that game went, Canada took it was 2-0 lead, and then that third period collapsed from Canada, 2 goals to tie the game, OT, and then it's Mitch Marner, who did not have a good game at
No,
all,
he had a.
breaks in.
I will say he had a good couple chances in OT, but the first 3 periods just wasn't like you couldn't notice him at all. He was just not great at
No,
all.
it
No.
really wasn't. It was turnover after turnover, and that you know what that could be because it's a new team. You're still trying to gel with your line
Yeah.
mates, especially he was playing
To
in
be
that
fair,
top
yeah.
6 role,
To be
and
fair,
like he's playing with.
to be fair, they only had like 1 or 2 practices before, right? So
Yeah,
it's tough, especially for a player like obviously not the caliber of McKinnon or Crosby or McDavid, but it's tougher for players that aren't as skilled as them to just come into a new team like that, right? So
yeah, exactly. So it makes sense, but he breaks in. Crosby his third assist of the night, the primary on that one. It just he rips it, and it
yeah.
gives Canada the
Mm-hmm.
first win, gets them 2 points out of the possible 3 with the
Yes.
overtime win. Not a bad first game for Canada.
No, and yeah, it was pretty much how they wanted. Obviously, they didn't want to go to OT, but and going into the tournament, they knew they were going to win 1 goal games. Like they weren't going to win 4-0. They understood that, but it was a good start. Next time, hopefully, if they play Sweden in the Olympics, it's not going to OT, but it's all right, and a win's a win, right? So,
Yeah, and also I believe
hmm
it was a bit of a tryout game for Jordan Binnington to see how he would
yes,
perform under the lights,
yes,
and did let in two
he
goals in that third period, but he definitely proved that he was ready to take on the
the
States on
the
Saturday.
the one goal was a cupcake and shouldn't have went, and like any goalie could have stopped it, but it's okay. Well, next game, obviously the biggest game of the tournament, we had U.S. Canada in the Bell Center in Montreal. Of course, we have all the politics and whatnot. We had booing of the national anthems.
Yep.
We're not going into politics today, but
No,
we had the
Trudeau
booing.
Trudeau in the crowd.
Trudeau was in
Trudeau
the
in the
crowd.
crowd.
Some might
Yep.
say like they're destined to lose if he was there, but you know, another great start for Canada after the booing. And I guess we didn't even mention the fights. The fights was by far the most, probably the biggest highlight for most fans in the entire
Yeah.
tournament was the
Oh,
fighting.
100%. Yeah.
I want to hear your take. What was your thoughts on that?
You know what? I think the U.S. executed it perfectly. The Kachuk brothers just going out there and do what they do. That is why. Obviously, both of them are going to get brought to the tournament,
Mhm.
but that is the role they're going to play. Obviously, Matthew played that top six, and eventually Brady did. But Brady was brought in, if I believe, as a third liner, because as a Sens fan, I know what he does. He's gritty, doesn't give a crap about anybody but himself. He just does all the little things. He doesn't care. He'll get in your face. He'll get under your skin, and that is exactly what him and his brother wanted to do in that first
Mm.
3 seconds.
Yeah,
So Matthew drops the gloves with Hagel. That Florida Tampa kind of matchup there,
yeah,
definitely some bad blood.
hmm
Just gets the crowd out. Well, it gets the crowd even more in it, right? But
right.
also gets the U.S. bench fired up, and that's exactly what they want to do. Matthew wanted to prove a point that they're not just going to come into Montreal with all these Canadian fans and not just lay back. Like they're here to put on a damn fight.
Yeah,
Then 2 seconds later, Brady does the same thing, sends the same message. You see them dap up each other, go to the penalty box. That kind of awesome brother
hmm
moment. We've always wanted to see these two players play together, and it was amazing. And then obviously the JT and Pareko fight, like 7 seconds later,
yeah,
just to cap everything off.
yeah. It was
Crazy.
like it got a lot of people watching after that. Like on social
Yeah,
media, everybody started talking about it. There's what I don't know if it's the NBA All Star skills or if it's a game or
it was
whatnot. It was
skills. It
skills.
was the skills
Like
competition.
tons of people, I'm sure, switched. Like I could see it everywhere. Everybody was switching their TVs or whatnot to the hockey game, which I
Yeah,
found
like
really cool. But
I remember tuning back in to the because during intermission or during commercial breaks, I would look at the NBA All Star game quickly, and I remember seeing Wembanyama and Chris Paul grabbing those three
yes,
pointers and just throwing them away, trying to cheat.
yes,
Like, what are you
yeah,
doing?
exactly.
What? And the thing is, that's like
hmm
what Kucherov did last year at the All Star
Yeah,
break, right?
yeah,
Just not giving a crap about anything.
mm,
This is entertainment for
yes,
the fans. The best
exactly.
on best players, and the All Star game just doesn't do it.
No.
And the NHL realized that, and that's why we did Four Nations.
Well, yeah, and like the All Star game, you're not getting people from out like fans outside of the sport. Like, you're not getting those people that don't watch hockey every day. You're
Yeah.
when the Four Nations, you're getting people that haven't watched a game in years coming in and watching these
Oh
U.S.
yes.
Canada games, both of them, and I found that really unique and it's a great way to grow the game. I do want to
Oh,
ask. I do want to ask. What was your thoughts on the group chat though?
on the group chat.
The Matthew and Brady Kachuk and JT Miller. They had a group chat before
Wait.
the game.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
And they
they basically
I
said that
do
they're
remember this
fighting.
vaguely. Yes. I mean like obviously if you're gonna have that type of start, it's definitely gotta be coordinated a little bit. And I mean those three type of players do like to do that type of thing, get under Canada's skin, especially in the crowd in the atmosphere they were against. Um, I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it ruined it a little bit. Obviously, knowing it was staged, but like
The
they
players were
could have
saying they were
like
yeah.
I'm sure if Matthew Kachuk fought at the off the draw, I'm sure Brady Kachuk would have done it anyways. I think he would have gotten that idea. So I
Yeah.
mean, they could have not said anything, or I don't know. But like, I feel like
I also
this
think
it wasn't corny, but like it would have been cooler if they just did it and it was just natural. But I don't know.
the way they pulled it off, like afterwards with the tap between Matthew and Brady, made it seem
Hmm.
like it was natural to the
It well,
crowd.
yeah,
And so
obvious. Yeah, we
that
didn't
group
find
chat,
out. We didn't find out till
yeah,
the day later, but it was
that whole group
great.
chat
But
thing doesn't, yeah, that whole group chat thing does not affect me at all. I don't think it really matters. I think still the show they put on was still great, and the thing is, even though they had that group chat, the intention was still the same. They
mhm,
still wanted to get the crowd going, get US fired up, and just put on a show. So I don't think the group chat really matters, in my opinion.
okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, now into the game, we had great start by Canada as best goalie in the tournament. Jordan Bennington assists Connor McDavid along with Drew Doughty as Connor McDavid scores a great goal to start the game, which is just incredible for Canada.
Goal of the tournament, Caleb. Absolutely. McDavid gets the puck in the neutral zone, breaks in with the speed he knows he has. I forget the defenseman that was on him, but just flashes right by
Hmm.
him. Forehand, backhand against the best goalie in the world.
Hmm.
Not in the specific tournament, but Hellebuck, the best goalie in the world.
Yeah.
It just buries it. Like
Hmm.
that's not a goal Hellebuck lets in so many times, but it's
No.
Connor McDavid.
Mhm.
What a goal.
Best on best. That's all you can ask for. And
Yeah.
stuff like that's always going to happen best on best. Everybody has a chance of scoring, which is just amazing. And then later in the first period, you got Jake Gensel tying it up with Jack Eichel and Zach Werenski assisting him. And then second period, another not so great goal, Dylan Larkin. It was a good shot, but Dylan Larkin on Jordan Bennington makes it 2-1, assisted by Matt Boldy, who had a secretly quiet, pretty good tournament.
Yeah, he was. I mean, like he's that bottom six type of
Yeah,
forward that
yeah, but
every team needs. So he
yeah,
played his role.
I mean, he played his role and it worked out for him. Definitely has a good chance next year for Team USA. So,
Yeah, that'll be interesting. It really is interesting. He's still really young. He's very
mhm,
young. I believe either
yeah,
him or Sanderson are the youngest on the team. If I'm or
probably,
Faber, maybe Faber
maybe
up there
Faber.
too. Any one of those three are
Hmm.
definitely one of the youngest on the team. So I definitely think Boldy has a chance. But mind you, you could bring even Tage Thompson,
Yeah,
maybe
Cole
a couple
Caulfield.
other forwards. Cole Caulfield, yeah. Mind you, two goal scorers that probably need to play in that top six to be productive.
I
But
mean,
I think Faber. I mean, pardon me. I think Boldy had a great tournament.
yeah.
So
Hmm. And then third period, just couldn't get it done after almost like it felt like we were kind of being we got dominated in the first period after we scored, and then it was kind of back and forth throughout the second and third, but then the empty net, Jake Ensel kind of seals the deal after Canada was definitely pressuring for the last couple minutes.
yeah, and that Jake Gensel goal, like I don't know. That first one was very interesting.
Mhm.
I don't know. Did we talk about that first one?
No, not really.
No, that first one was very interesting. Kind of slides underneath the pad of Bennington,
Yeah, that
and
one
then
was
just
bad
seals the
too.
deal with the empty.
Yeah,
Yeah, it just seals the deal with the empty
yeah,
netter. Good for Gensel. Really good tournament. Just yeah,
yeah.
Canada loses the.
It was a great win, but like everybody kind of knew like it was gonna be Canada US in the end. Like
Yeah,
unless Canada really collapsed against Finland, which we'll talk about soon.
yeah.
Mhm. Do you have any other thoughts on this first game of US Canada?
Great game. It was a
It was a
great
great game.
game.
Good game.
Best atmosphere I've heard that many people have ever sat in,
Hmm.
ever been to with people in the building.
Yeah.
Um, obviously, a three fight something we'll probably maybe never even see again in an international competition.
Probably not.
Um, yeah, one of the best games. Well, obviously, it would have been nice Canada won, but still one of the best games I've probably ever
Yeah.
watched, entertainment wise. Um, would have wished for a different result, but
Mm.
great game overall.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll head into the third and final round robin game, I guess, with Finland, Canada. Obviously, we had some like we had some stipulations, like we needed to win in regulation, pretty much, or if we did, we had to hope Sweden lost to US later in the day. So basically, if whoever won in regulation had a good chance or was gonna move on. So still some big stakes, but
Yeah, and I think Kano went into that game knowing it was their weakest competition.
mm,
Obviously, we know Finland had a bit of trouble on the back end, getting some
yes.
defensemen only
Hmm.
having 11
Mm-hmm.
available defensemen, and they had to use their 10th. They used 10 of
Yeah,
them because
they
3 of
used
them were
10.
injured.
Yeah.
So, bit tough.
Yeah.
But overall, I think they still had a great tournament. Obviously, they won
Yes.
against Sweden, the
Mm-hmm.
Nordic battle.
Yeah.
Great win for them. So they were coming into that game maybe with a bit of momentum after
Mm-hmm.
they beat Sweden
Yeah,
on Saturday
for
night.
sure.
And I
For
think
sure.
it was. I mean, obviously we know the storyline.
Yeah.
Canada gets buzzing right away, back to
Yes.
back goals. I believe it was it was McDavid to start us things
Yeah.
off
And then
off the
McKinnon.
post, and then McKinnon. So the two superstars getting busy. A 2
Yeah.
nothing game, like 5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
into it, and at that point, especially me, like I was laid back. I was like, okay, Canada's
Yeah.
gonna run away with this game. It's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be like when the U.S. played Finland on the first day, they won 6-1. It's gonna be something like that. And obviously, we know as we get deeper into the game,
Yeah.
it kind of
No.
did, but at the
Well,
same time, it didn't at all.
yeah. Heading into the first intermission with a 3-0 lead, you got to be feeling pretty comfy, especially against a depleted Finland team. And then, yeah, obviously McKinnon scores again in the second period to make it 4-0. And like you could sit back, like you had Cale Makar back in the lineup, so really there's not much to worry about, right? And then heading
Yeah.
into the third, like in me, I had deep down maybe they cough up one or two, but I didn't see a third one coming, especially that late in the game. And I just thought it was for Finland at least, it was pretty incredible that they could pull that off. And a lot of players definitely showed off. They showed their pride, obviously, and showed off some of their skill that maybe some of us, especially the casual fan, couldn't see. Right?
Yeah, like Mikael Granlund getting two
Yes. Mm-hmm.
goals. He was great in the
Yeah.
tournament. I believe
He
he finished
was.
with 3
Mm-hmm.
on the tier in the tournament. Great tournament by him,
Yeah.
a little a veteran
Yes.
type of player.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, good
He was.
game.
Yeah.
I do
Mikael.
think they should have started Saros over Lankinen,
Okay.
just
Yeah.
because like I know Saros didn't have the best game, especially that third period against the U.S., but he's still a top tier goalie in the world. And
Yeah.
Lankinen, yes, he's having a good year in Vancouver, but in this biggest game, you got to rely on
Mhm.
the goalie with the most history. And I think Saros is him. Did give him the start, unfortunately, but Lankinen played
Yeah.
fine, I guess.
Yeah. To be fair, Lankinen, he probably deserved the net given how he played in the Sweden game.
It's
'Cause,
true. This is true.
I mean, sure, not the great. Like he's really good, but you've got an all-star elite UC Saros sitting on the bench. I'd much rather go with him than Kevin Lankinen, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like, do you have any thoughts on the 3 goals? Like 2 goals within like 20 seconds almost.
You know, Canada sits back. They chill out, which you can't do in a best on best tournament. Finland just kind of just goes crazy. Gets 3 in a row. It's now a 4-3 game all of a sudden. Canada kind of locks back in. Of course, it's Captain Crosby to finish things off with the empty netter, kind of calm everybody back down at home. Just what he does.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. It's not very good for Canada, especially when you're gearing up then to play the States already on Thursday.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. Yeah, it was definitely not very pretty, but at least they got the win. So
Yeah, that's for sure. And like Crosby definitely sealing that deal. Big hit in center ice, and then good on Reinhardt to get it back to him and
yeah,
just flick, not even flick, just like a prayer almost, a Hail Mary
yeah,
from
yes,
center ice, which I thought was pretty cool too. But after that, we knew Canada was moving on, and that U.S. Sweden game meant nothing, which was unfortunate. That would have been like it was a good game already, but and knowing that if
hmm
Sweden could have done something, it would have been even cooler. But we're not going to get into that one. But it's definitely is unfortunate for that final game. But now after the Finland Canada game, we're off to the championship game. Obviously, we had the Quinn Hughes news, and heading into the game, we only saw really one lineup change, which was Seth Jarvis in for Travis Konechny. What was your thoughts? Like both of them played a couple games. What was your thoughts on that?
I really like Seth Jarvis. I thought it was a good play. Plays a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
swagger.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's going to be playing that fourth line, so he needs to play that gritty kind of checking line type of game. I think I also think Konechny also kind of plays that. Both
Yeah.
are very good players, respectively, for their teams in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think Seth Jarvis was the right play. I kind of like this tournament just a little bit better. Could have went
Yeah.
with Konechny,
It does.
but
Yeah.
I don't mind
Doesn't
Jarvis.
really matter.
Who played in the U.S. game on Saturday?
I
Was it
feel like
Konechny? No, it was
I feel
Jarvis.
it
It
was
was
Jarvis,
Jarvis.
and then Konechny came back in for the Finland game.
Okay, so
So
Jarvis played the U.S. already. Might as well go with him. He didn't. I don't think he
yeah,
had a bad game against the
no,
U.S. Yeah, I don't think it's. I don't.
hmm
I think it was a good call.
yeah, and then half an hour before we find out Josh Morrissey is out due to illness, and then we have our guy Thomas Harley come back in. Comes in on Saturday for Cale Makar. Now he's coming in for Josh Morrissey. Like I said, I thought Josh Morrissey was the best defenseman. Not great for Canada, obviously. You want everybody there, which is it's unfortunate that Josh Morrissey wasn't there, but
Yeah,
heading in, you could definitely be a little more nervous now, given that Josh Morrissey's out, right?
exactly. Yeah, and
hmm
it happens as you said, 30 minutes before puck drop, right? Like
Yes.
you're ready to go. You
hmm
finally have Kale and
Yeah.
Josh ready to play best on best against the U.S.
Yeah.
and
And
Morrissey is out
we
just like
don't
that,
care.
and that shuffles everything around.
Yes.
Now we move up. I believe it was Sanheim to play.
Sanheim moved
play
up.
Parayko.
Yeah.
With Parayko, yes, and just like that,
Yeah.
now Sanheim, who's good defenseman, but now he's in your top four
Yeah.
against the United States,
And then
right?
and then 50-year-old Drew Doughty has to play. Like he probably played an extra 5-10 minutes because of that too.
Yeah.
His role was elevated too. So obviously he was pretty good. Like he was good. Obviously not the best defenseman on the team, but
No, and he's
and
a vet, so.
yeah. You don't need him to be good, but he had to play more, which obviously isn't the end of the world. But you'd rather have Josh Morrissey taking those minutes.
Oh, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. But and then Harley obviously draws back in. Very good tournament from the young fella.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about him in Saturday's game. Gets called in because Kale obviously didn't get to play.
Mm-hmm.
Just phenomenal.
He
Just
was
skated so well. He
Mhm.
pinched really well. Not afraid to. He played
Yeah,
with
no,
no nerves at all.
he was one of the best defensemen, one or two in Canada for Canada. Like Travis Sanheim and Colton Parayko, he was definitely better than them, that's for sure. I think both those two guys weren't great, and then obviously Thomas Harley was a good bright spot for Canada on that decor.
Yeah, and a lot of people were confused about the call up
Yes.
originally, and Pete DeBoer,
Yeah.
coach of
Right.
Dallas Stars, correct? Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Obviously knows this. He's a coach. He was, I believe, one of the assistants
Mhm.
for Team Canada. So
He is. He
knows
was
his
on the
guys.
bench.
Yeah, yeah. He
Yeah.
calls up Harley and over guys like I know your boy Mackenzie Weegar,
Yeah.
over many other defensemen
Yes.
who
Chris Tanev or
Chris Tanev. Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, they were blanking
those
on
were
mine
probably
there, but
those are probably
yeah.
the top two. Like, given how Canada was building the team for defense, it would have been one of those two that you would have thought. I mean, and Thomas Harley, he was young and his analytics do look good. Obviously, his best on best, you don't know what he's gonna turn out as, but he looked pretty good. He's like playing beside Miro Heiskanen on Dallas, so I mean,
that's an elite
it
part.
was a
to have,
surprise.
so.
It was a
Yeah.
surprise, but it makes sense. That's for sure.
So yeah, he's used to playing against a top level of players, playing on that first line, first D line with Heiskanen, but comes in and just my biggest thing, my most thing I was impressed by, he played with no fear,
No,
no
not
fear
at
at all.
Exactly.
Especially when you didn't really practice with the team,
No,
right? Because
he didn't, no.
he had to wait for Kale. He couldn't practice when
Yeah.
Kale was on the ice. He couldn't
Right.
touch the ice
No.
when Kale was on the ice, which is
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah. But,
And so, yeah, he just obviously you're not going to be able to replace what Makar does,
Mhm.
but he definitely did a good chunk of it.
yes. Okay, and even another thing before the game, I will say TD Garden wasn't as I don't know. Everybody was there, like it was packed, but like I wouldn't say it was as electric as Montreal. That's for sure. And our whoever sung the Canadian national anthem too, that was quite embarrassing too. I'd say that. And I'm glad I wasn't the only one who thought that. Like I guess like I to be honest, I wasn't paying attention that much to realize, but I guess she also messed up the lyrics too.
Really?
I guess I don't know if she sung something out of place or whatnot, but I found it interesting. Like she sung, I believe she sung like the first line in English, and then the next like 4 or 5 were in French, and then went back to English. But usually it's like, is it not
Yeah,
English, 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 and then French, 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 and then English, English, something like that?
she's saying our home and native land, which is normally sang in English,
Yes, correct.
in
And
French,
French,
and
exactly.
that's
That's what
totally
caught me off
fine.
guard. It
Yeah, no,
caught
it
me
caught a
off
lot of
guard
people
though.
off guard. It really did because growing up hearing the
Yeah.
anthem, normally it's in English, and then all she
Exactly.
just sudden she switches these
Yeah.
lyrics to French, which is fine. It's
Hmm.
just a curveball
Yeah.
out of nowhere, and
And
the
especially in
tempo,
Boston.
yeah, and the tempo and the cadence
Yeah.
she sung at, like some words she
Yes.
just completely stretched, and
Butchered.
other words that
Yeah.
are normally stretched she shortened, and it
Yeah,
was really
exactly.
weird.
It was. That's for sure. I don't know. Maybe a little bit more practice next time, or maybe just get the person who's singing the American national anthem. Why not? I'm sure he would have done better, or she would have done better. Because I will say
Yeah.
the American national anthem. I don't know who sang it, but
It was the
she knocked it out of the
Boston.
park.
Yeah, she did a great job
Yeah, and the
with the
trumpets.
Boston. Yeah, the Boston Orchestra.
Yeah. Mhm.
What? Yeah. So
It was good. I'll say that. But and now I guess heading into the game now, eh? First period, Nathan McKinnon, assisted
Yeah.
by Thomas Harley, of course, and then of course Sam Reinhart, who had a strong tournament too.
yeah,
Makes it 1-0.
and it's just that's how you got to beat Hellebuck, right? Hellebuck is the best goalie in the NHL, and you're not going to beat him many other ways unless you have bodies in front of him, and that's exactly what I did. Look at if you remember watching it, McKinnon just throws that puck on net. He's by near the blue line after Harley gave it to him, and he's just completely not in a shooting position, but he just
Yeah.
shoots it, and it goes
Exactly.
in. No
Yeah.
sight for Hellebuck. Perfect way to start the game. I loved it from Mac.
It definitely great start again, and Canada scored first in every single game, which is what you want. You want to score first. But then later on, we had Brady Tkachuk, who had a strong tournament too, 1-1, and I mean, it was a lucky bounce, I'd say. But like, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the defense. I forget. I think it was Kale and it was Kale McCarr and Devontae's who were on the ice, and just looked very flat-footed. I remember it was Taze who was covering the near side post,
Yeah.
and like no one saw Brady coming. Brady went right down the middle of the slot, just drove the net just like he does for the Sens, and just gets a stick on it. But I thought everyone around the net was just kind of flat-footed, not really doing anything. It was Matthews on the wraparound.
Yeah.
You gotta pick someone up. What do you think?
I mean, it was a little discombobulated, and somebody didn't do their job, and then of course that spirals later on during the play, and then of course comes out of nowhere Brady Tkachuk, which I mean, it's a goal that it's not terrible, but it's also something that shouldn't happen. Like it's not
Yeah.
you knew that wasn't gonna happen again, right? Like
Yeah, it just gets
yeah.
a tip on it, goes over the shoulder of
Yeah.
Bennington. Not hard at all.
I can't really fault Bennington that much, but
No, you
still,
can't.
like I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it happens. It's okay.
Yeah.
We move on. So it was
Yes.
1-1 going into the second period,
Right.
and the other Senator,
Yeah.
go Sens go, Jake Sanderson, who gets called up in the tournament because Charlie McAvoy, or gets put in the tournament. He got called up the day before the tournament started.
Yeah.
Added to the team. Charlie McAvoy out. Sanderson steps in, and off another play that was kind of really discombobulated. He finds the puck in the slot. Bennington not there because I believe it was it a rebound or it was Brady had the puck near the doorstep, kind of bounced around. Matthews gets it, I believe, and then somehow ends up on the stick of Sanderson and in the back of the net.
Yeah. I mean, I was surprised that Sanderson could rip it like that. I wasn't expecting that at all from
He can.
and I mean, not much. I mean, I just didn't see that coming really, but it was. I would say it was a pretty slick goal for US. That's for sure. It was a pretty nifty, pretty cool goal. But
Yeah.
you know what? 2-1, hoping, and obviously, 2-1 shouldn't shake Canada, and of course it didn't. As moving through the second period, we have an unexpected goal scorer, Sam Bennett, Stanley Cup champion last year. Sam Bennett scores to make it 2-2. A sigh of relief, I'd say. Canada breaks that doesn't want to end. They don't want to lose to US only scoring one goal like last time, of course. And now it's
Hmm.
2-2, assisted by Mitch Marner, who I'd say had a weak tournament other than that one OT goal in the first
Yeah.
game. But you know
Yeah.
what? Marner needed that, that's for sure. And I mean, Marner is definitely making the Olympic team next year, but
Oh, 100%. He's a top six
he
forward,
like
right?
exactly.
You can't
Well,
leave that
yeah,
type of skill
no,
home.
and like he was moved down the lineup quite a bit. Like obviously he's playing with Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett's a fourth liner on this team. Like Mitch Marner moves down and he gets a much needed assist, but Sam
Yeah.
Bennett probably on the low like least expected guy to score a goal, big goal at least, right? But you know what?
Well,
He
yeah, I mean,
played
we'll get
he played game 7 Stanley Cup final last
right.
year, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why he's on the team. It's for the skill,
Yeah.
it's for the grit. Not as much as the skill, but he's on the team because of the playoffs that he's been in. He's been into 2 Stanley Cup final series in the past 2 years. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
we'll get to it later in the show, but Sam Bennett, hell
yes,
of a tournament from the guy.
exactly. He
One
did his
of
job
the
and did
Oh my
more.
goodness. He played probably his role the best out of
Hmm.
any Canadian player. Obviously, not giving too much away, but we'll talk
Yeah.
about it later in the show. Sam Bennett, I loved his energy, played his role perfectly. Huge goal, tie game, Caleb,
Hmm.
going into the later stages of the third period.
Yes. Now, third period, we didn't have any goals in the third period, but I would say it was pretty fun. I'd say there's a lot more times I'd go silent watching the game and it's the thing with best on best. It's back and forth and anybody can score and like both teams are having their rushes and their chances, but honestly a great third period even though there were 0 goals, that's for sure. And I will say there's only one power play and that power play was in the I believe in the third period for Canada. They had so many chances. It didn't work, right? And I don't know what they'll do next for the Olympics, but I don't know. They didn't have many power plays in the entire tournament.
No, I think
Nobody
they ended
did.
with four.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like, and
like
that's the
the
thing. Like, nobody wants to take penalties because every single power play in each team is amazing. And yeah, you just don't want to give up those. You don't want to go shorthanded at all, right? So,
yeah, and I also think the real refs like put the whistles away. There
oh yeah.
definitely could have been a
Well,
couple more
there could have
penalties,
been, but
but
I mean, I think like we'll talk about it later, but the reffing was honestly pretty good the entire tournament. That's for sure.
yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah, and no reviews at all. 0 reviews the entire tournament, right? So
Impressive. So,
mhm.
I mean, we'll take that. Like, it's lovely. As we move into the later stages of the game, overtime
Overtime,
is
yes,
needed in the championship of the Four Nations face off, Canada, USA. You could not ask for a better ending. Script.
no,
If the script is, of course, they wanted overtime. The golden
hmm
goal, obviously, we know in 2010,
yeah,
everybody's saying, oh, we're going to get a new golden goal.
mm,
And well, Caleb, I'm gonna say it. The overtime looked like it was going all the U.S. for the first little bit of it.
that's for sure. And I mean, well done, like Bennington turned into prime Dominic Hasek there for a little bit, and he shut down Austin Matthews one time, Brady Kachuk a couple times, right? So
That
Mark Stone did have a good chance, but Hellebuck obviously got that. But it was mostly USA that in overtime, that's for sure.
if it wasn't for Jordan Bennington, it would have been a completely
Hmm.
different
Yes,
overtime. We would not be this excited talking about this tournament.
right.
What a save on the, I believe it was a rebound at the side of the net by Jordan
Hmm.
Bennington. He
On
gets it with the
yeah,
glove. And then the face off couple seconds later denies, was it Matthews? A glove save,
yeah.
flashes the leather.
Hmm.
Just like, this is why they chose Biddington to be the number one starter, and they didn't give Aiden Hill or
Hmm.
Montembeau
Yeah,
any minutes at all because they trusted Biddington
yeah.
to get his stuff done, and that's exactly what John Cooper told him. They had a discussion after that first game, saying, "Listen, I know this game went in overtime, not what you really would have wanted, but you're still our number one guy," and that's exactly what he
Hmm.
did. Obviously, got the Game 7 win 5 years ago in Boston
Hmm.
to win the cup, gets it done like it's another
Yeah.
Game 7, this time with the leaf on his chest.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to say the least that he got every game. Like a lot of people thought maybe Aiden Hill's coming into the game for Finland, or not coming in, but like starting the game against Finland. But
Hmm.
obviously they stuck with Bennington, which I mean it worked out, I guess. And I mean he's looks like he's starting in the Olympics now, which is pretty crazy. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we got that'll be well. We'll see.
we'll see.
We all
Obviously, we
know.
got a year. We got like
Yeah, we all know the goaltending
350 days.
debate. We all know the goaltending debate. How we took the three guys who had the worst stats for Canadian goalies, something like that. Like we
Yeah.
left Logan Thompson at home,
Right.
who is like 19-2 right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see next year. But
See.
Caleb, I 100% agree with you. If I'm looking at Italy right now, Jordan Binnington, you are my number one starting goalie.
All right, and now let's run through it. OT goal. Let's hear it.
Alrighty. OT goal. Canada finally gets the forecheck going. We break into the United States zone. And who else? You cannot ask for a better ending than this. All alone in the middle of the slot. I forget who feeds him.
Kel McCarr and Mitch Marner. But
Mitch
Marner's
Marner,
the
that's
one
who I
that
thought. The primary.
Uh-huh.
How do you leave? I get he didn't. We can also talk about this. McDavid had a terrible game. Mind
No,
you, could be because the U.S. were, all over him, giving him no space on the puck. And that's what McDavid utilizes, his speed when he has space. And he even said it in the post-game interview. He did not have a good game at all. But they leave him all alone in the slot. It's a new era of Canadian hockey. You can even call it a new golden goal. I don't know if I'd really call it because obviously it's not the Olympics. But
No,
Connor McDavid rips it top corner to win the Four Nations face-off for Canada.
And just, I mean, nothing better than overtime. Of course, that's the perfect way to end almost a perfect tournament. That's for sure. Is ending with overtime. And you know what? It was a great goal. And you know what? Canada finally can take a breath. It's still our sport, that's for sure. And just a great way to end. I mean, Connor McDavid obviously was not great, not great at all. The entire game. So good for him to get that one. I was hoping it maybe be. I mean, it would be greater if it's Crosby, but
Yeah.
or even like Drew Doughty or Brad Marchand, like somebody that's older, a vet. But obviously, Brad Marchand isn't getting minutes in that situation.
No.
But I mean,
Oh no.
5-on-5 overtime. It was great. That's for sure.
Yeah, you cannot ask for a better ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and it kind of just puts the nail in the coffin. Like, this game was so big. I know Canadians were maybe nervous.
Yeah.
Like, is it still our sport? Like, the U.S. beat us on Saturday, and now we're in overtime on the biggest stage. Well, maybe not the biggest stage. Four Nations face-off stage. Felt like the biggest stage.
It did, and the players made it seem like it. That's for sure. Like,
Yeah.
it meant something. It did
Yeah,
mean
it
something.
definitely
Obviously, next year is going to mean a lot more, but like, I'm sure Canada didn't win for the trophy or for the cash prize and the gold medals. They won just to beat USA. That's for sure.
Oh, 100%, which is great. Great
Yes.
feeling. But yes, Canada, champions of the Four Nations face-off. It's still our sport. Man, that feels so good, and we'll do it almost pretty much all again, even on the bigger stage for Olympic gold
Yes.
next year in Milan, which is going to be incredible.
Yes. Well, I think, do you have any more thoughts on the games before we move into some more player statistics and stuff like that?
I'm ready. I'm ready to
All right.
dive right in.
All right.
Let's do it.
I think, is there any notes on the goaltending before we get on to some other things?
Binnington did exactly what he needed to do. We both know Binnington is a goalie that plays with emotions and plays with aggression, and we saw none of that
Yes, I
throughout
was
the
gonna say
tournament.
that. Mhm.
And that is because he was told. He was told, listen, we're here to play 4 games to win the Four Nations face-off. And he played so good. Especially, let's talk that fight between Colton Parayko and JT Miller when everything's going around his net. And normally, if we're in St. Louis, Binnington is probably
in there.
throwing a
He's
punch
in
in
there.
there somewhere,
Yeah.
or even looking across the whole ice to Hellebuck.
Yes.
Nothing. He was just standing there, just minding his own business. Something we don't see from Binnington, but I loved it.
Especially the Sweden game and this first U.S. game too. He got bumped a couple times, and especially the Sweden game. Like, I was surprised that he didn't do anything. He just went back to the blue paint, and that was that, right? Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he just stepped up huge. He's played in these big games before. It's exactly what we needed from
yeah,
him, and he proved to Canada. He literally proved to Canada
yeah.
that he is worthy of starting.
Hmm. Yes,
So,
and I think we'll now move into players we are impressed by. I want to hear who you have.
so
And
I
wait,
have
before we start, like, don't say
yep.
you were impressed by Nathan McKinnon or Sidney Crosby. I want to hear, like, obviously we knew they were going to be impressive, right?
Yeah. So there's one guy that stood out to me this whole entire tournament, and he blew me away. I knew what he could do, but with the role he had, and even coming into this tournament, maybe I don't want to say debatably even on the team, or maybe even the healthy scratch position, but Sam Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
What a tournament from the fella. Comes in as that healthy scratch or even that fourth line grinder. That's what he was brought to the team to do. Be that fourth liner who does all the little
Yeah,
things, gets in the head, gets under the skin of his opponents, and he even added some offense to
yeah,
what he did. He played 7 minutes, I believe it was the US game, 7 or 8 minutes, and he led the team in shots.
yeah.
But led the team, but also like was last in minutes on the team.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
just doing that, his minutes were so effective. And he impressed me so much. He's a lock for next year at the Olympics.
yeah.
Sam Bennett. I want to hear your thoughts on Sam Bennett quickly. Just
I
a
mean,
great tournament from him.
he he did what they wanted, and he did more. And
Yeah.
they expected games, like they expected Stanley Cup Finals play from him. He did that and was offensive, which, I mean, what can you expect? Obviously, he's not a fourth liner on the Panthers, but he is a fourth. Like, he seems like a true fourth liner, right? And
Yeah.
he played perfectly. That's for sure.
hmm
Any other guys that you have that you're impressed
I
by?
was also I was also very impressed by Brandon Hagel. I thought he
Okay.
had a really good
Yeah.
tournament. I know he has I maybe didn't show too much in the
No.
finals, but during those three round robin games, I thought he had a really good tournament. Obviously, he's a point per game player on Tampa Bay. I
Yeah.
don't think he kind of gets shadowed away though by Kucherov and even like Stamkos the last couple of
Hmm.
years. Those big boys who really crunch
Yeah.
those big minutes. But even Sorelli, I'd say mostly Hagel though. I really liked Hagel's game.
Mm.
Obviously, answering the bell to Matthew Tkachuk in the on Saturday's game against the U.S. in the round robin. I really liked Hagel. I thought he scored. I think he scored at least one
Interesting.
goal. I know that for sure. Got a couple points. I
Pickle.
liked Hagel, and he played that third line really good. He added some offense.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I have a different take. I think
Okay.
Hagel and Sorelli. I was especially Sorelli. I wasn't surprised. Like, he ended with a -3,
Mm,
and I mean, I wasn't impressed. I never noticed him at all. And
really.
I mean, Hagel, he had a pretty sick assist. I'm pretty sure, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he actually didn't score a goal, but he ended with a
Oh wow.
negative. He ended with a -2, and he had 9 shots, which is pretty good. He ended with 9 shots. I
Yeah.
like that, but he did end with a -2, which, I mean, a -2 is fine. I mean, given a lesser role, but still, for Brandon Hagel, you're not really looking for him to score, right? Are you,
No.
like,
No.
you're looking for him to do the nitty gritty and be
Right.
in
And
the
we
yeah,
expected the big things from the top six. Obviously, the big boys are going to eat. They're going to do
yeah,
what they're going to do, and that's why I didn't mind Hagel. He did the little
okay,
things exactly like Bennett. Although Bennett step above Hagel
yeah,
in my
mhm,
performance. He is my MVP. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I didn't mind Hagel on that. Especially, I
okay.
didn't like when he was chosen for the team. I was like, okay, John Cooper, bringing his
It makes
boys.
sense. It made sense.
Um, yeah, you know what? Not the best finals, not at all. He was kind of
No.
unnoticeable, but doing the little things, nitty
Yeah.
gritty, got it done.
And yeah, the two players I was most impressed by, obviously I had Thomas Harley.
Mm.
Came out of nowhere, right? And I was just
Yep.
shocked that he actually, like, he ended with an assist on that first goal, which on the championship game, and then the other one was Braden Point. Um,
Mm.
Obviously a lot of people were wondering who is Connor McDavid going to play with, and it took, I think it was a third, like, was it Finland or was it the end of US game where they finally put Braden Point and Connor McDavid together.
Yeah, I
And
think it
Connor
was the
McDavid, it
U.S.
was
game.
okay. Well, yeah, they,
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it worked in the Finland game, and it was working. And obviously he only ended up with 2 points, 1 goal, but I was impressed. He was offensive, and then he's not a two-way forward, but he definitely played like a two-way forward, which is what you
Yeah.
like to see and what you need with so-so goaltending, right?
Yeah, and we know
So
how
those were
fast
yeah.
McDavid is. We
Hmm.
know how fast McDavid is, and
Yes.
Braden Point is probably one of the only players on
Hmm.
the team who could keep up
Yeah.
with that pace,
That,
which was huge, right? Feed the
hmm.
monster, and that's exactly what he
Yeah.
did. Especially because I think they were playing with Mark Stone on that line
Yeah.
for a little bit, yeah. And
Hmm.
we obviously know how slow Stone is, but
Yes.
he's
Hmm.
so intelligent that he could like having Stone just to feed Point and McDavid when they're picking up speed in the neutral zone. It was a good line. And I think having Point on that line was perfectly. I like Point too.
Now we'll go into who you were least impressed by.
Least impressed by. Okay, so I was thinking about this, and honestly, like there was a couple players going through my head, but after checking some stats, didn't have too bad of a tournament. Like I originally was thinking Sam Reinhart, just because he scored 57 goals last year.
Yeah.
Mind you, he's playing on that top line with was it Crosby and Mack? With Crosby
Yeah, he
McKinnon?
was on that line to
Yeah.
start.
And
They did a lot
honestly,
of they did a lot of like mixing with the lines throughout all the games, but
yeah.
yeah.
And so obviously you have all these top scorers, and you don't really need Reinhardt to score, but that's what he
Hmm.
does. He scores goals. He has 31 goals this year in the NHL, just over like obviously more than halfway through the season, but he's going to finish with 50 goals probably. And I don't think Reinhardt finished with a goal. I could be wrong, but
I don't think he did.
no.
I don't think he did.
And he did obviously really had a really good game with 3 assists
Yeah,
on was it
he
Finland or the
yeah
US?
he
It's
ended up
Finland.
with he had 4 points, 4 assists.
Yeah. So I can't really hate on him, but so Reinhardt, decent tournament. I just thought he could have like I would have liked him to shoot the puck maybe a little bit more.
Okay. Um, the two
And I got one
guys.
more.
Okay,
I got
yeah,
I got
go
one
on.
more. I got one more. And my other one, um, this is also a bit of an iffy one, but I'm gonna go with Brad Marchand.
Okay, yeah,
Just because obviously we know Brad, veteran guy. Maybe when he's brought to the team, you're thinking, okay, maybe we play him with Crosby because that's where he's played in the past. Obviously, almost more than 10 years ago, or
hmm,
almost just under 10 years ago. But Brad brought in the veteran presence, still a decent player, he's fallen off in the last couple seasons, but he gets put on that fourth line and he scores. He did score in the Canada game, in the first Canada
hmm,
game, but after that, it was kind of like he was you know, he wasn't really visible out
yeah,
there. And another big aspect, one of my biggest aspects, is he's the Rat. That's his nickname.
hmm,
And we didn't see any of that. He
no,
wasn't very physical. He didn't really get into any of the scrums. That was my biggest thing about Brad. This is my biggest point about Brad Marchand. He didn't play that scrummy game that he's known for. Like, where was that at all in the Canada States? That's especially
yeah,
with how scrappy this tournament was. We saw none of it from Brad.
hmm. I mean, yeah, he's older, and I mean, I understand he's older, but like, still, you expect
He's
to
still
see that.
doing it. He's
I
still
know
doing
he
it. This
does
like
it, and
his age has nothing to do with it. He
I
still
mean,
does it in the NHL.
yeah, he was one of the players that was selected early, and I mean, if he wasn't selected early, I don't know if he's making this team.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I mean, on my list, him, and I wasn't really impressed by Mark Stone. He was playing with the top guys, and
Mm.
I mean, there's not much to go about it. I didn't notice him at all. But
Yep.
Brad
Yep.
Marchand, like, I don't think he's making the team next year, to be honest. Like,
Yep.
he didn't do anything.
Caleb, let's hear yours. Players you
Okay.
were least impressed by.
Well, Brad Marchand, obviously, and I had Mark Stone, but the other one, like,
Mm.
obviously, I wasn't expecting much from Travis Sanheim, but I don't understand. I don't understand at all how he's on this team. Um, it was it was bad. He too many giveaways. He can't play in the offensive zone. He coughed up the puck too much. Whenever he touched the puck, especially in the offensive zone, it like the offense dies, and he was
Mm-hmm.
just drowning. And Colton Parayko, he was okay offensively, but defensively he wasn't great. So
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what they wanted. They wanted him to be defensive, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's why you think like someone like Chris Tanev, who's probably the best, maybe the best defensive defenseman in the league.
yeah,
It's just that's all he does. But I didn't
exactly.
mind Parayko brings really good size to the team. I would like to
Yes,
know how tall he is officially, but he's huge.
yeah. But like we like Jacob Slavin was amazing in that last game. We didn't have a Jacob Slavin. Like Chris Tanev could have been that, but we didn't have that Jacob Slavin, right? So
Yeah, yeah, agree with
next
you.
next year they have to like next year if Chris Tanev is doing what he's still doing next year, I think he's gonna make the team because they need that. They need somebody that will do anything to stop the puck. Like, yeah,
I agree.
he made Connor Hellebuck's job easier, and that's what we didn't really have.
Yeah, good for
Mhm.
Jacob Slavin. Incredible tournament. Kind of
Yeah,
someone who doesn't get enough recognition for what he does, especially with Carolina.
yeah. All right, now moving on to players who we thought who were on the team that earned a spot for next year. Like players, like obviously we know Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon earned a spot. Is there
Yeah,
any lower levels that maybe earned a spot?
I mean, I already praised him so much, but Sam Bennett. I think
Mm-hmm.
Sam Bennett would be ridiculous if you don't bring him back next year. Play that fourth line role exactly what he did this year. If you want to raise him up and elevate him in the lineup, even you can do so, even to the third line. Or
Yeah,
I don't know, he didn't know too much skill to raise him into the top six, but he was too good to not bring him next year. I also think Harley. I think
yeah.
you gotta
That's
even
who I
just gotta
have.
give him
Yeah.
a look. You
Mm-hmm.
have really have to give him a good look. He's obviously still young, and so I don't want to call him a lock for next year at the Olympics. But adding this to your resume, it's like applying for a job, right? He's now got this to say, listen, I
Mm-hmm.
represented the country on the biggest stage, and John Cooper will probably be the coach next year.
He is. Yeah,
Maybe.
he
He is.
is.
He is.
Yeah.
Okay. And so he sees what Harley's done already. I get there's a lot of defensemen that are left at home that could have been brought that we already talked about,
Yeah.
but I think Harley's got a great opportunity to be brought next year to
Yeah.
Italy. What about you, Caleb?
I only really had one, and it was Thomas Harley.
My bad.
It's all good. No, no, no. Thomas Harley deserved it. Shea Theodore in that first game before he got hurt, he was good, so he definitely has a spot.
Yep.
The other like hopefully Petrangelo's back, so somebody's losing a spot, and if Harley's gonna be there, somebody's gonna also lose a spot. So hopefully Pareko and
Yeah.
Sanheim. But the rosters are bigger, so I believe you get
Mm.
an extra D and an extra forward.
Yep.
Maybe even more for the Olympics. I'm not sure, but the rosters
Yep.
are bigger, so everybody on the roster should play too because it's a bigger tournament, weaker teams. So I mean, it doesn't really matter, but like final game, like if it's U.S. Canada in the gold medal or in the semifinal, like I'm sure Thomas Harley's playing in that game, and
Yeah.
Bennington made the team too as well. No,
Oh,
that's
yes.
obviously we do that, but yeah, yeah.
Yes, the other two spots are up for grabs.
Hmm.
Middington is definitely already on the team. I like
Yes,
that.
yes. And is there? I've got a few
Okay, why don't you start us off? Why don't you
with
start us off?
players who I think lost a spot. First of
Yep.
all, we got Brad Marchand, Anthony Cirelli, Travis Sanheim, and I've got those three for now. Obviously, I feel like there's some better forwards. Like Zach Hyman is definitely making the team next year. So like even like a Brand like I don't know if Brandon Hagel gets cut, but he might. I don't know. And then we've got both goalies on the team. The two goalies that didn't play Mountain Bow and Aiden Hill. Obviously, I feel like Aiden Hill will make the team, but they definitely could have lost a spot. Sure, they couldn't do
Mm,
anything anyways, but like Logan Thompson should be on the team next year.
yeah, exactly.
So
So you named a bunch.
yeah,
I'm just gonna go with one. I'll name Drew Doughty, an older guy,
okay.
aging. Obviously adds a lot of veteran experience. There's
Hmm.
a lot of good defensemen coming up though for Canada. And I think you got to give him a look. You have to.
Hmm.
But if he doesn't make the team, it wouldn't surprise me.
Hmm.
If he does make the team, it also wouldn't surprise me. Just one of those fringe guys that has always been a lock in the past, just like Brad Marchand. But we'll see about the Olympics next year.
So I know I've already hinted about who I think should have been on the team, but after watching the tournament, is there one player that you think should have been on the team that didn't make the team?
Yes, actually. So there was okay, so this is a bit of a different take. It was after when Quinn Hughes was gonna get added to the team, and there's a bunch of chatter about, oh, they're adding Quinn. So kind of like Harley got added late.
Hmm.
For Canada, there's a bunch of chatter on Twitter about this one specific player that Canada, if it was on the Canadian team, would have maybe elevated this team to a whole nother level,
Hmm.
because I don't think anyone was expecting how intense and how physical this tournament would have been. But how about Tom Wilson
Yeah. Okay.
on Team
Hmm.
Canada
Yes.
with Sam Bennett on that fourth line? Are you joking me?
Hmm.
With how good of a year he's having
Yes.
in Washington? Because he's adding offense,
Yeah.
but we all know what Tom Wilson can do.
Hmm.
He's an absolute
Like,
rat,
yeah.
like Brad
Yeah.
Marchand
Well,
is.
he should have
Except
been Brad
except
Marchand's
he's
replacement.
younger. Exactly.
Hmm.
So I think you bring in Tom Wilson. Obviously, I get why he doesn't make the team, because like they gave him a look, I believe. But
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
I'm sure they did. But yeah, obviously, like he's a good player. Made the All Star team last year. Like he's
Yeah.
capable of doing these incredible things. Just I don't know. I get why
Yeah.
he didn't make the team. But if Tom Wilson was have been on that in our bottom six,
Yeah.
this team would have been crazy.
Hmm. Yes, and I've said, well, I've got two, I guess, Zach Hyman or Chris Tanev. I feel like Chris
Mhm.
Tanev really would have stabilized the defense, and
Yeah.
then Zach Hyman,
Um.
obviously somebody to play with Connor McDavid.
Yeah. I'm interested. Like we all know, Zach Hyman had a very very slow
Yes,
start
he did.
to the year.
He didn't deserve it, to be
Um.
fair. He didn't deserve to
No.
play, but given how
Yeah.
for years he's played with Connor McDavid, right?
Yeah. And even like I expected him to make the team. I
Hmm.
really did. Um. Just yeah. I don't know. Gets cut. Doesn't make the team, which is I guess it is what it is. We all know Hyman. He sits in that back door. He puts in goals.
Yeah.
He can shoot. He can shoot. 50 goals last year. But
Hmm.
definitely feeds off Connor McDavid, and we
Hmm.
all know maybe McDavid played great, great tournament. But in some moments he definitely could have used someone he was maybe familiar with to really elevate it to the next
Okay.
level.
Yeah.
Um,
And do you have any other thoughts for next year? Anything you want to say before keep moving on?
I'm excited. I really am excited. It's gonna be really good, nice to see even more teams, like players like
Hmm.
Draisaitl and Tim Stützle playing for Germany. We both never like Germany's always been a very low tier team,
Yeah.
but now they have a couple superstars, right?
Yeah.
Teams like Czechia,
Switzerland will be
Switzerland.
fun.
Yep.
They're gonna be good.
Fischer, Meyer. Yep.
Yeah. You go
Yossi.
Yossi. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
And
got
then
yeah.
yeah, teams like Czechia who just won the World Championship
Yeah.
last year. There's a
Hmm.
lot of good teams. I'm going to be very excited. It's going to be a great tournament.
Hmm.
Obviously, I hope Canada wins
Yeah.
and, bring some players that should have made the team in the Four Nations to replace the players that maybe were a bit iffy in
Right.
this
Hmm.
last week's
Yeah.
tournament.
That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm excited. Obviously the rosters are bigger, so more people will make the team, which is good. And I'm just excited to see Canada play a team like Switzerland and see how they do, right? Because Switzerland,
Yeah.
they've got quite a few good all stars, like
Hmm.
great elite players, and then they've got some good depth too, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they. I don't even know what the pools are for next year, but it'll be fun to watch.
It's going to be crazy. You're going to
Mhm.
get some random teams too, I'm sure,
Yeah.
like maybe Great Britain or something like that. But
Kazakhstan.
yeah, I'm
Mhm.
super excited. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so moving past the Olympics, Kale, I want your final thoughts on this miraculous week and a half we've had of the Four Nations face-off.
Yeah. I think it was home run, 9.9 out of 10. I feel like there's nothing they could have like there's nothing they really could have changed. I think the only thing is the roster situation. I feel like they should have just had an open roster. Anybody can join, anybody can leave. It'd be a little harsh for some of the players that are on the team and just all of a sudden can't play. But I feel like having someone like Quinn Hughes, who is available to play, come in, I feel like it would have made it even better. Um, and then yeah, nine, like it was almost perfect. No controversy, no reviews. I mean, it was pretty much perfect, right?
Yeah, it's what hockey needed.
Mm-hmm.
It
It's what they
really
needed.
is. Like, who expected this
Yeah.
for the Four Nations face-off to blow up? It's on a
No.
like I'm not gonna say a global stage, but a North Americans.
Yeah.
Like this, it was everywhere in Canada and the USA these
Mm-hmm.
last couple days, and especially in the US,
Yeah.
just growing the game. Like I'm obviously I gotta be happy to grow the game in the US, just in the
Yeah.
world as a hockey fan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so many eyes towards this tournament where the focus is normally on other sports. This Four Nations face-off gets the main coverage.
Yeah.
Huge for the game. As you said, absolute home run for
Mm-hmm.
what they did, replacing the All-Star weekend. Would have been another kind of boring weekend. Would have
Mm-hmm.
did the only good thing would have donated some money to charity
Yeah.
probably
Mm-hmm.
for whatever team won, but
Yeah.
it's whatever. We still
Yeah.
had like seriously other like I've heard other like the NBA considering maybe doing this with like Canada, US, France, and a worldwide team.
Yeah.
Like they're trying like this was the best idea the NHL potentially has ever had. One hell of a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for the Olympics next year. It's sad that it's already over. Push for the
Yes.
playoffs though. Like this is a spark
Mm-hmm.
for the NHL. There's gonna be so many more
Hockey's
viewers.
going up.
Right?
Hockey's going
So
up.
many more viewers as we push for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And the playoffs are going to be absolutely electric.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of things going on in Team Canada right now, though. Team Canada buzzing. Finally, champions on best on best. Hopefully,
Yes.
motivates all of our other, favorite Canadian teams
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of push for it. Well, and we'll have the World Championship.
Yeah,
in a
I'm
couple
curious.
months, too,
I'm curious
so-
how that will work. I'm curious
Yeah.
who's all gonna go, and like if I'm a guy that's on the brink of making the team next year, like I would be going if I'm not in the playoffs, right?
Yes.
Like there's no
Great
like
point.
John Farrs went last year, and I'm pretty sure there's a reason. It's because he wants to make the team. He wants to make the like Olympic team, and he wanted to make the Four Nations, right? So, like I mean, be interesting to see.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bull. I mean, we'll find out in a couple months, but yeah, if you're a fringe player, you got to go prove yourself
Mhm,
on
you
the
do.
stage. You
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, most of those time, those rosters are sometimes really, really fringe NHL players.
They are.
And
Yeah.
something like last year. Last year was,
Yes.
I didn't think it was too bad. Actually, a lot of NHL players who weren't in the
did.
playoffs went.
Yeah.
And that was it was awesome. It was a great tournament.
It was, yeah. And I mean, didn't they collapse last year too? Which I found, yeah, I
They
don't
did.
even
It
remember,
was-
but I just remember they collapsed. And like I think they played Switzerland, and I don't know if they
It
blew
was.
it or if
They did.
They did blow it.
They were
Okay.
up. I think they won, but they
Okay.
were up like
Yeah.
6-5-1.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Switzerland scored 4 goals and made
That's
it 5-5
yeah.
and went to
overtime.
overtime.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I do remember now. Yeah. that was something. That's for sure.
Oh goodness. That was crazy. But
yeah, that'll be
this
fun.
shows what the tournament does. Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly.
That'll be fun, and it'll be a good for. Oh, I'm sure there'll be better competition this year, given people want to play for the Olympics next year and want to have a spotlight. So
yes.
it should be good.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I
Yeah.
think great first episode, right?
It was a great
We
episode.
were
Thanks for
snapping it around,
Right?
Mhm.
and couldn't start with a better way. One of the
No,
greatest tournaments
exactly.
in recent, probably the greatest tournament in recent hockey history.
Mhm.
Yeah, you could not ask for a better way for our
Yeah.
premiere episode.
That's for sure.
Yeah, Kale, want to wrap us up?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't yet, go check us out on Instagram at TrueNorth_ice. We've got stuff up there, and we'll have clips on YouTube and up there too. So check us out there, and I think we're good.
Yeah, you pretty much wrapped
Alright.
it up. If you're looking for all coverage of any international
Mhm.
competition of Team Canada, we got you covered. That's what we're here
Exactly.
for. Follow us on all of our platforms. You already plugged the Instagram. We got a YouTube, which we'll be posting clips on. Just if you want to follow your nation, we're the
Follow
boys
us.
to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, and we'll see you next week, next Wednesday.